What up, Naughty Steppers? It's Connor Whitmore here again with another video for you on the Nawtystep channel. And it's time for something a little different as I give you the first in a new series where I will be talking about what makes a good dubstep track for me, which you could kind of rephrase as what I look for in a good dubstep song, a genre that I've been listening to for almost a decade now, spanning tens of thousands of songs, and which has inspired many an opinion in me over those tracks that I've listened to, so I feel like I have a very good understanding of what works and what doesn't work in dubstep now. And I'm just gonna go over some of those key ingredients right here, right now. If you are a producer yourself, these are pointers that I feel you could use as tips or guidelines for your production method if you so wish. Now, there were some points that I had here that only apply to some kinds of dubstep but not others. So, for example, I would like to see some kind of musicality in a brostep track, for example, but I wouldn't say it's necessary for a rhythm track. There are lots of rhythm tracks out there that I really enjoy that have next to no musicality in them at all. So the points and tips that I'm talking about here are all blanket ones for dubstep generally, and I'm pretty sure they all apply to all kinds of dubstep, at least to some extent. So I've got 5 points for the first part in this new series. Let's go. And the first thing that I'm going to talk about here when it comes to what I'm looking for in a good dubstep track is to have an awareness of space and timing. Something that you'll notice the best in dubstep are very good at is knowing exactly when to bring new sounds in and where to place them, having that understanding for what their track needs exactly at that point. Best in the game at this is probably Zomboy, and more notably the earlier form of Zomboy, so around 2011 to 2014, that awareness of when to introduce new bits. This was what his earlier projects were founded upon, everything at the right pitch and definition as well, which is near unmatched in the scene in my opinion. This aspect is very important in seeing the musician or producer as someone who can reliably construct songs very well on a consistent basis. Otherwise it seems or comes across as a little bit haphazard and random. Don't just add in sounds and effects because they sound cool. Think about what they add musically to your track and bring them in an organic way. Don't just put them in there just because they sound cool. And you want them to create that sense of completion for your track. So don't, as I said, don't just put them in there. Make sure they have a purpose and work towards the track sounding better overall. Second thing that I'm going to talk about is that I want a dubstep track to have a sense of body and presence. Dubstep is almost entirely about the darkness of it and the impression that it leaves on you, from brostep to even deeper, more original forms of dubstep. Whether more subtle or mind-blowing. So yeah, regardless of how ostentatious it is, I want to feel it. I want it to have that impact on me. I want it to be a visceral experience in some way and move me, to leave its mark and have me feeling some kind of way, whatever the intention of the track is. And this comes through the layering of your sound at every point in the track, whether it's the introduction, builds, drops, midsection, if you have one of those, you know, everything. You want to make your overall sound as rich and full as possible while still being able to hear absolutely everything that's going on. Get the mood right for the type of dubstep you're making, which comes through that sense of body and definition and presence, whatever kind of dubstep it is, and you have the foundation for a really solid track. Thirdly, I'm going to talk about the age-old problem that is the percussion, and notably the snares, which I feel are a big problem in dubstep at the moment. They really are make or break for whether your track sounds good or not. And so it's perhaps the most important point here, because with all the other points I could see that there's a little bit of leeway with it being good or not so good, and they're a bit more subjective, whereas with the snares, if they're off, honestly, I find the track completely unlistenable. The drums provide the bass for everything else to flourish, so you want them to be playing that background role and not be noticed pretty much at all. If you're not noticing them, then that means they're blending in perfectly, and that's exactly what you want from them. whilst he may not be strictly dubstep, Peekaboo is the absolute king at this. I mentioned the snares earlier, and it really is a problem in dubstep at the moment. I feel like it's really quite rare that you get them absolutely spot on, and they are really important for giving your track that snap and, you know, sharpness, potentially more so than kicks and hi-hats and all the other rest of forms of percussion. I really think the snares have to be on point for your track to excel. Fourth, in terms of what I look for in a good dubstep track, is to have a good interaction and dynamic between the sounds involved. An extension somewhat of having a good awareness of space and timing, but I feel with all kinds of dubstep, they work best with a good dynamic between the sounds used. Absolute cardinal sin when it comes to producing dubstep music is don't just throw a load of sounds at me. Have them engage and play off one another and almost communicating with one another. Perfect example for me would be Duke Camp by The Frim. So much going on and it's so crazy and wild, but every single sound follows on perfectly from what precedes it. Everything rebounds off each other so well, but nothing is out of place. So yeah, make sure you have engagement, interaction, communication between every sound that you use. Don't just put sounds in there just because. Make the construction very organic and pure, and you have the foundation once again for a very good dubstep track. And fifth and finally for this inaugural video in this series is to have variation in some form or another. This one is definitely more simple, but I want to hear enough over the course of a track that shows a willingness to spice things up and keep my attention and provide new avenues of interest. Whether it's new sounds or a change in genre or tempo, a key change, whatever, I appreciate a sense of progression and change over the course of a track, signs that the artist is giving that track life and not just copying and pasting. Not to say that continuity never works, for example having the second drop the same as the first, that can really be very good actually. I've seen that work really well in the past, but that drop has to be very impactful and have a very definite journey and direction to it. Has to be very memorable, near iconic. So yeah, it's about keeping it spicy and giving it flavour from beginning to end, but also giving it a sense of autonomy, as if it isn't robotic, and as if it has its own drive and ambition to travel and drift where it wants to. But that's that, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video and perhaps got something from it, whether it was advice and tips and guidance for your own production, or whether it's just what you recognise yourself in what you enjoy about dubstep generally. What makes a good dubstep song for you though? Anything that I haven't mentioned so far? Let me know in the comments below. If you're new here, Nawtystep is all about coverage of bass music across a wide variety of genres, from EP and album reviews to top 5s and top 10s, rave footage, opinion pieces and more. So if that's something that interests you, then consider subscribing. Links to a couple of examples of those other kinds of video that I do on the channel will be linked just here, as well as a couple in the end screen / outro. And lastly, if it's naughty, then you know guys, so be sure as always to keep it naughty and stay safe. And I shall see all of you legends in the next one. Peace out.